Hi, I'm Yolanda and this is Speak On. You've changed the world. We owe you so much. But for everything you've given us, connection, laughter, joy, confidence, music, civic engagement, jobs, comedy, contouring, Chrissy Teigen, cats. You've also given us hatred, violence, bullying, FOMO, depression, addiction, anxiety, conspiracy theories, and, best of all, the downfall of democracy. Ah, social media, you fickle bitch. You give with one hand and take away with the other. Yes, I have access to so much at my fingertips. Knowledge, recipes, pictures of cakes, pictures of Chris Evans, Charles Michael Davis, Winston Duke, some hot guys. You've given a voice to the voiceless, but also a voice to trolls. You've emboldened the hateful people that hide their faces and spew racism. The private is now public. All information is now equal. Up is down, left is right. Today, we're discussing social media's impact on the world. For centuries, change, new inventions, and in more recent years, the introduction of new tech tends to prompt some sort of moral panic. Some dive headfirst into it while others are too scared to interact. There have been lots of things that have changed the world and that people thought would lead to our downfall. But have we actually reached it now? Is the very fabric of society tearing because we can't stop using social media? Joining me today is journalist Jackie Adedeji, who also hosts the brilliantly named podcast Jackie Big Tits. Welcome, Jackie. How are you?
Hello, Yolanda. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good. First of all, the most important thing, the name of your podcast. Please enlighten us, elaborate.
Well, Yolanda, I don't know if you can see that I got big tits.
Amazing.
So my podcast is self-titled. It's named after me because my name's Jackie and I've got big tits. But I called it Jackie Big Tits because it was about addressing the elephant in the room. And I found it really funny when I meet people and they act like they don't know that I have big tits. So when I tell people now that I've, my podcast called Jackie Big Tits, they're like, oh, and I'm like, yeah, because I know you see my tits. But my podcast is about being open and being transparent. I've always been someone that's got so many questions and I decided I wanted to be a solution for other people. So I put myself out there. Things happen to me and I try and figure it out with guests and also try and learn things. I'm fine with not knowing stuff, but trying to educate myself on different things. So my podcast really is kind of this body of work where I'm in my 20s and me and the listener are both discovering what the hell our 20s mean together. And I really, really enjoy it. And my dad is a vicar and he absolutely hates the name, but pastors' kids are always the worst, right?
We're just out there just causing trouble and strife, but you know what? Live your life and have a good time. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you.
Love it. I feel like I should have maybe called my podcast that as well, because and now you said that, it is the thing that's in the room, because I am also she of large chest.
What size are you?
I'm a 30 double G. I actually model for a lingerie brand.
Do you?
Story. Yeah. So it's I have the big boobage.
I love it.
Now, but when I was younger, it's a thing that people always notice because I'm only 5'1" as well.
Right.
So it's basically I am a head, tits and legs. That's kind of pretty much how my body is made up. So.
Amazing. Wow. So you've always got the double G's out then if you're a model for
when I was younger, I used to hide everything under really baggy clothes and stuff like that. Did you? Just walking around looking like Mr. Strong because you're just a square.
Oh my God, or a jacket potato. That's what I used to
literally.
say. Literally a jacket potato. Your whole body just looks round because you've just tried to hide your boobs as much as possible. I'm with you.
Exactly. But then I got older and I was just like, no, this is ridiculous. I'm like a small person and I look all my proportions look wild because I've got these giant things on because I'm scared of what people will say. And once I got above a certain age, then I was like then bodycon all the way. All the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Body positive. Or trying to be.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. As much as we can be, because sometimes it's hard, isn't it?
Oh God, it's sometimes it's I just feel neutral about myself. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's God, truly, I get paid to take my clothes off, so now I'm I don't really care anymore, but it took a while to get there.
Oh, it does, doesn't it?
So what is your relationship with social media? Do you feel like it's good, it's bad, is it a bit up and down?
That's a really good question because I feel like I don't take social media that seriously. Like, I don't even want to say detox with social media, but like I can delete Instagram, the app, off my phone, and delete Twitter off my phone, and like I could live perfectly fine. I don't have an addiction to it, whereas I know a lot of people, especially a lot of my friends, who are like, oh my God, I'm like, my screen time is shocking this week, whereas I'm not so, I don't know, I'm not too addicted to it. However, I think one thing that I think social media is kind of, in the morning, the first thing I do is check my phone, check my Instagram, and I'll be scrolling, and you could ask me, what did you just look at? And I couldn't even tell you. Like, I've just gone through so many different things. I'm like, I have no idea. And in that time, like, I could have like gone for a run or like made breakfast, but no, I'll lie in bed and be on my phone scrolling, and then it's like, oh God, I got 10 minutes before I've got to like have a Zoom meeting. It's like, what was the point? But we all do it, don't we? We all sort of, but I think social media can be positive, but it can be helpful, but it can also be harmful. And I think that everybody has quite a complicated relationship with it, because there's so many benefits to it, but also I think, especially when it comes to body image, it can be tough, especially with, oh God, I mean, these like misleading health products like skinny teas and waist trainers and these fitness plans, and then people are like, oh, you can like buy the PDF of my fitness plan for like $4.99, and I'm just gonna say it, Yolanda, I've bought a couple and I ain't even used them.
Just collecting them.
I've just collected them, like just using my PayPal, like it's only $4.99, and then like have I even looked at it? No.
Haven't broken a sweat once.
No, I'm like and I think it's that sort of thing where I think that there can be a lot of like toxicness to these apps, is because it's like people showing you what you should look like and how you should be, and sometimes you see so much of it you start to believe it. Is there something wrong with me? So I think that with me personally, on Instagram and things like that, I don't follow people that make me feel shit. But equally, I don't know about you, but I think with having big boobs, I have struggled to find anyone that even looks like me, for me to even almost be envious, if that makes sense. Because I'm like, I don't know anyone with like massive tits.
Yeah, when your body's always like not like the norm anyway, therefore you don't do huge amounts of comparison, do you?
Exactly.
Right. Like, I've had that when I was younger. I was like, well, I don't compare myself to anyone. There were times when I wished I had smaller boobs, not because I didn't like them, but because other people made me self-conscious about them. But then
1,000%.
Yeah, the only person I ever looked at was like maybe Kelly Brook, and we still don't have the same figure, because she's really tall compared to me.
Right.
I'm so short.
See, I feel like because we had big boobs, I've never had this conversation with a fellow big-breasted babe. So this right now is like heaven. But don't you feel like you almost went through this journey of like hating yourself and then loving yourself earlier than everybody else?
Oh, absolutely, because I fell asleep one day and I woke up with tits.
Oh my, me too! Yes!
Yeah. It's like a really specific thing that happens to you. So it's like I went to bed, I think when I realised that my boobs were big was when I was like maybe about 14. So it was like, so really 13, whatever, same kind of similar size to everyone else. I truly went away one summer, and then my mum had to buy me a bikini, and I just couldn't fit in anything. And then because my boobs were like a C, and then before I knew it, maybe before the end of that year, I was having to wear Triumph Doreen bras, or whatever the hell they're called, because there were no bras that fit me, especially with the small back and big boobs. It just didn't exist. So I had to wear bigger bras and then stitch them. And my nan was like tailoring my bras and stuff.
Wow.
And they were ugly. So yeah, it was a whole thing.
Right. See, this is the thing. I feel like when it comes to like women having, really rocky relationships with social media and like following pages that make them feel bad about themselves, I've always said that like I don't have that, because I feel like I've never felt like my body was normal from such an early age. There was no representation, that you almost become your own role model for yourself, because there's no one else. And again, like the people that we had were like Kelly Brooks, or like Katie Price, or like Jodie Marsh.
Literally,
and it's like, A, they're white, and B,
and
like
two
their
of
boobs
them,
are
they
real.
don't even have real tits.
Exactly. Right. So you learn that like, okay, like I have to do this. I need to figure, like, I need to like be my own role model, because everyone's going to keep telling you that like your body's like not normal and not right. So you almost develop
on a hourly basis.
Right.
Yeah, on an hourly basis, right? Because girls are like, I wish I had your tits. And then boys can't stop staring at it. And then, grown-ass men can't stop hitting on you inappropriately, even though you're wearing a school uniform and you look 20 years younger than you are. Oh, yeah, it's just...
Yolanda, I literally feel like we've lived the same life.
We have, haven't we?
Just... Like this experience is so unique.
Yeah. Especially growing up with at the time where magazines, I grew up as like peak magazine time. So I was born in that like right at the beginning of the 80s. So it's like I have lived through peak magazine time, through supermodels, through ladettes, all this kind of changes with women that have been really interesting. And definitely things that, you know, some things were really empowering, some things were horrible and you internalize things. But then now with social media, I feel like it took the power back from people, editors that were filtering it. And so now you can see a reflection of yourself. Like you're talking about stretch marks. It's like I see stretch marks all over the place on Instagram and I love it. I'm living for it. It's amazing. I feel like there are places obviously online, like, you know, on your podcast, on your social media, in your column, you talk about these issues all the time. You talk about these things all the time and you are the antithesis. So I suppose that like we do need to work out how we can, I suppose there can be more of this on social media to consume or consume in a really specific way. So people start to internalize the more positive things that are happening.
Yeah, definitely. I think like our mind is everything. I mean, our mind is such an important part of us. And like, it's about unlearning and reprogramming. That's definitely something I've learned during lockdown, about unlearning so many things that we were taught that were wrong. And also like, even with our parents and even with our peers, like people are not always going to get it right, but you just have to figure out what's right for you.
Absolutely.
And so and that's why I think with like my column, I don't mind putting myself out there. Like I don't, because I feel like I wish I had that. Because I feel like we are very much like the big sister to ourselves, right? Like as we get older, we think, okay, well, what would a 14-year-old me would have liked? You know, and so that's what I try and be, so that like people, even like me talking about when I got caught on the toilet on Zoom, like that is like, just so that if it happens to someone else, it's like, don't worry.
Things can happen. Crazy things happen all the time. And that's what I like, is that kind of honesty. Again, because I talk a lot about like honesty about things that have happened in my life. Like I'll talk about like mental health when that was caused by grief. Like having a really, really, I cannot add enough, really crappy breakup, just like embarrassing things that have happened to me. I just say anything because I don't feel embarrassed about it. And truly, I think if I could have heard some of these things, like you were saying, you've made a really good point. Like when I was younger, then I would shed so much of a, I suppose, insecurity that I had when I was younger just wouldn't exist if I knew other people were doing things too.
Right, exactly. Like you think that like, I remember thinking like, am I weird because I do this, or am I weird because I like this? And then now on social media, there's people that like do all this weird. It's like, you know, when people tweet stuff and then you're like, oh my God, I thought I was the only one that did that. And like, you're just a bit like, wow, like I'm not afraid.
This isn't just shower thoughts. Other people are thinking these things too. Yeah.
Right. And I love that. And I think that's what I like about social media, is that we're all just bloody weirdos.
Yeah, exactly. We are just a collection. We're just a collective of weirdos, and everybody, just ever so some of us intersect and some of us are slightly different. And I think you made a really good point there about things like you realised during lockdown. I think that double-edged sword of social media has really showed itself in 2020, because it's a super tough year. It's like a decade in a year. Everything that can happen. I mean, Trudy, I don't know how many weeks we got left now, like 6 to 7 weeks. Yeah. And anything could happen. We don't know. Right. We don't know. So and it's kind of a wild time. I mean, it could all be amazing, or it could be Sharknado. There is no in between at all.
Right.
And I think it's taught us a lot about ourselves, and we've really seen that kind of, on one hand, we've seen what social activism can do. We have. And on the other hand, we've seen people like really, I mean, my God, did you see, I can't remember the name. There are so many racist Conservative MPs. I cannot narrow it down. But someone the other day called Kamala Harris the Indian, because he couldn't bother to learn her name. And it's like, so I think we see all this stuff now, this double-edged sword of like, you can see hatred in its true form. You can see ignorance in its true form. You can see brilliance. You can see joy. And also I mean, people can be politely or hideously dragged for their nonsense, which is one of my favourite parts of social media. I love that song. But, you know, it can also, these things can also ruin people's lives as well. So how
1,000%.
How can people, do you think, like, manage their social media use? Because all that stuff can be quite stressful.
I think, like, remembering, like, to live, I mean, right now we're living in a permanent state of impermanence because we don't know what is really going on right now. However, I think it's about living in the moment, because I think sometimes we get so cooped up on social media and like in that world, and then you've been on Twitter for like 2 hours and like you haven't even got things done. I think it's just about like managing your time effectively.
Yeah.
If you're someone like me, I'm like one of those people where I'll just go straight up cold turkey, and like I might like delete Twitter and Instagram for like a couple of weeks and then just do me and then go back. It just depends on like what your, I suppose, style is, but I think it's remembering to like live outside of social media, and life also exists out of social media.
Yeah.
You know, because I think people get so like involved in it, especially during this year. You know, a lot of people getting cancelled, rightfully so, but also people being cancelled and then, you know, feeling horrible about themselves and things like that.
Yeah.
And now, and I feel like just because people online might dislike you, it doesn't mean your family and friends feel the same way. And it's remembering that, like, it's also like it's real, but it's also not real, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it's definitely like a microcosm of society, in because human beings are chaotic. So when the whole, you know, it being like positive, but also it being negative, and also like people's bigotry coming out and people's, like, you know, all of it is human beings. We're all just chaotic, and social media is where people, I think, feel like they can express themselves, rightfully so, but actually the stuff, how they really feel, comes out, which is a good and a bad thing. It's good because you can challenge people.
Yeah, and it's good because you can see who those people are, and you can stay the fuck away from it if you need to. Yeah.
Right. But it's also astonishing the confidence people have to
So
write the
much
things
confidence.
that they do. And I'm like,
just not just with their chest, it's with their entire body. And I
their
was like,
whole body.
Wow, I don't know if I admire it or if I'm scared of it. I'm just like, you said all
right.
of this and you're not drunk.
It's crazy.
You're not high. What's going on? Yeah.
It's crazy. But this year, for social media wise, I mean, I think was really interesting, the whole Black Lives Matter movement. I wrote an article about, you know, to what, dear white friends, we don't want apologies, we want action. Because it was a really interesting time where I felt like racism was on like people's lips, you know, in white Britain. It was the people were suddenly interested and suddenly were listening to the things that we've actually been saying for like 400 years.
Yeah.
Like it's actually not new, any of the stuff that we were saying. And you know, there was that weird phase where like everybody was like showing off all the anti-racist books that they were reading, and
loved
like
it, didn't they?
Yeah, like I didn't like that was kind of, and it was almost like if you don't post that you're reading an anti-racist book, then you must be racist.
Yeah. I think they were also really scared to, like, some of my friends were showing me stuff, and I was like, are you scared that I'll think you're racist if you don't say something? Because it's fine. I'm not watching you. I don't care. Yeah. As long as you don't wander around acting like a bellend, I'm all right. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was interesting, because finally the spotlight that we were asking for, the spotlight on inequality, was on us for like the first time in my lifetime, in our lifetime.
Same, yeah.
So it was a very, very, and then I think to myself, would this have happened if COVID wasn't here?
No.
And probably not.
No. I absolutely think it wouldn't. If the world hadn't stopped, if we weren't stuck inside, if we didn't already have like a level of being pissed off, because I think that's why other people were so galvanized, because they're so angry, and it gave them something to be additionally angry about. But also the amount of people that realized, and I'm like, I don't know, I was just staring bumbleclartly at them, because I'm like, really? You've known me for all this time, and this is the first time?
Right. Did you get apologies and things like that?
Oh yeah, well I did. I created a video. First bit of actual, like, I'd say intentional content I've ever created. Right. And it was really specific, and it was because I did it in response. I made a video about how racism feels. I did it in response to people quizzically asking shit online. And messaging me, and I was like, if I release a video, then everybody can leave me the fuck alone. Basically, I will answer all the questions by just saying this is how it feels. But also, I included, I'm pissed off because you weren't fucking listening. And I've been saying it. I have got into. I've always been. My mum's an activist. I've been an activist my whole life. I've always been involved in different things and social change, etc., and protests and all that kind of fun stuff. And I have fully got into huge rows with people on Facebook who are being bigoted or xenophobic or like homophobic or any of the phobics. I have done that. There are people that I entirely do not speak to at all who have showed their ass to me, and I'm like, I don't like it, and I never want to speak to you again. And but then everyone was surprised, and I'm like, you really weren't watching. That's your complacency is I'm embarrassed for you. So it was kind of, when I made that video, then I got additional bits of information, but I did actually say at the end of the message, I'm sending this, don't speak to me about it. I'm not asking for you to speak to me about it. We're not having a intellectual discussion. We're not having a salon discussion. Like Amanda Seales said, I ain't got the time. I'm on my trampoline. This is my time. That's kind of what it was like. But yeah, it was interesting.
Definitely. Yeah, it was a bittersweet time. Yeah. I think it's like, and it still is bittersweet, really. Yeah, it's almost like, I'm so glad that, finally people care, but also like, where were you when we were saying this so long ago?
Yeah.
That was a very interesting time social media wise, because everybody, was an activist, and also trying to be an activist, but also it almost became, and this is something I noticed, was it almost became a bit edgy to be like a social justice warrior. It was actually a bit edge to have like donate to Black Lives Matter in your bio. Like that was a thing. Yeah. And it's like, wow, is this okay? Because everybody's
like
trying to
be performative fashion kind of accessory.
Everybody's and I always say, I'm not woke, I'm black. Yeah. like I'm literally,
living it. Didn't need to wake up. I was born this way. 1981.
It was already political from birth.
Exactly.
So, but I think that was what has actually been interesting, because so many things, social media kind of, we were all able to see George Floyd's brutal murder. Yeah. And then, inequality there was a spotlight on inequality for the first time in a way that has never been. And I think seeing on social media, you could see the unity almost, which was really nice. And I think, if we didn't have social media, A, we wouldn't have seen George Floyd's death. Yeah. But B, we would have never really known what people were thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I think it was kind of a glorious time on social media. Like you were saying, people kind of show the good, the bad, and the ugly of themselves. And one of the things I think about the Rona is that everybody has just become, there was a time, I think, with stress, isolation, all these types of things, and just kind of being completely removed from our what we know as reality, just turned everybody into heightened versions of themselves. It just it's like, if you were terrible, you became more terrible. I feel like everyone just became definitely just a heightened version of themselves. And that's been interesting to see that play out on social. And then obviously culminating, I say culminating because truly none of this ends, but culminating in the US elections, and how people have gone from posting their black squares to there being more white women voting for Donald Trump than last election. And I know in the UK, seeing people positively outraged that people would even vote for Trump, but still really support Boris, who is really fucking racist.
Right.
That children of the corn looking motherfucker is racist as shit. Like, and everybody forgets it. They just think it's Trump and it's over there. And do you think,
when it's here,
do you think social media makes people, because it's like it's an inch back from reality, it's a step back from reality. Do you think that the reason why people can say, okay, this is happening in America over there, and associate all this stuff with Donald Trump and MAGA and Republicans, and not look at everything here, is because social media has given them that disconnect? Do you think it's, as much as it brings what we're trying to say, as much as it kind of is connecting us with stuff, do you think it also disconnects us from stuff because it's on a screen?
Definitely. I feel like as well, like racism in Britain is very much discreet. Like I think America has a massive, America was built on slavery. It has a massive, historical legacy with race. as we do here, but it's definitely something that, like, which, as we've seen this year, Black history is not even in the curriculum.
Even though it's actually British history. How do you think any people have got any fucking money in the House of Lords?
Thank you. So it's like, but people almost are like, oh, well, it doesn't happen here because, because I think there's I don't know whether it's a British stiff upper lip thing of like, oh, well, they didn't mean it like that. Whereas I think in America, they're more, the racism there's a bit more overt.
Yeah.
Whereas here, I found in my experience that people are very like subtle with it. It's very subtle here. Blink and you'll miss it sort of thing. Whereas in America, it's quite like people are quite proud to be like, oh, like make America great again.
Yeah.
And because people are like, oh, well, it's not like that here because it's not as overt, then it doesn't exist when it definitely does. We only need to look at the Windrush scandal to know that like racism here exists amongst other things.
Yeah.
Amongst our Prime Minister saying that Black people have watermelon smiles.
Yeah. And everything he said against pretty much every marginalised community in the country.
Oh,
he loves it, doesn't he?
Right, and burkas being like letterboxes and things like that. So, but it's like, oh, well, I think it's just because it's discreet here that people don't. No one overtly says stuff, so people just think that like they don't mean it. But it's the same with like, I mean, look, Britain's Got Talent, Diversity's Dance, which was all right, but people, it was like the second most complained video footage this year, but it was like I thought everybody was in solidarity with like Black lives. Everything's a bit,
but not in the form of dance though. No, Jackie, no. The form of dance is too aggressive. It's aggressive. Like, I don't want them little black boys on my TV dancing about racism. No. And do you know what was really astonishing was that which I think is quite interesting, like racism here, is that when Ashley Banjo did that video, a troll had posted this picture of Ashley Banjo, Anthony Joshua, and Lewis Hamilton saying, "We, the great British public, only want you to focus on entertaining us. We don't want you to talk about race." And I think that's so interesting because it's like, do you forget that these people are Black? Like, they're obviously like entertainers and sports stars, but like they're Black first. Well, it's because they reduce them, but right back to property again, don't they? Right,
right. And again, it's so subtle here, and that's why I feel like there is that disconnect, is because, and it's still, and the thing is, even when it is explicit, to be honest, on social media, like Nigel Farage and stuff, people almost pretend that they didn't see it. There's a lot of racial gaslighting, I think, here.
So much.
That like people are
looking at you, Carol Malone.
Yeah, exactly. It's like all of that. Yeah. So I think, there is definitely that disconnect here. But I think that, racism is complex, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, we could talk about it for literal
it's
decades.
A complex thing.
We have for centuries.
But I think that the only good thing is that, like now, and I said this to all my friends, now you lot can't be saying wrong stuff anymore, wrong shit no more. Yeah. Like those days are over of me being like, oh, okay, maybe they didn't mean it. It's like, no, now you actually know better. So, and I think that's been good because I feel like we definitely have internalized a lot of the things people have said to us over the years.
Yeah, because we knew we'd just be gaslit the fuck out of, so.
Right, so now it's like, no more. That shit stops.
Oh, absolutely. So,
because I've literally seen you post stuff, so you know. Yeah. But again, I suppose that's a good thing about social media and race here, is that people post stuff like, and then you also receipts. People can tweet stuff and then you can pull them up and be like, okay, but that's interesting. But on the 6th of March, you posted this.
Exactly. 159 weeks ago on Instagram, I saw you like this picture. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Also, social media is kind of good for just also being nosy.
Absolutely. And I was
creeping.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know what that?
Do you have a burner account?
No, do you know what? No, I don't. I will just say things. No, I don't have one. I've only got I have accounts that I follow for really specific things, but I don't do anything from them. So it's like I have one that, because I love food and I love recipes and stuff, but then if I put them all on my thing, I'd have too many things on my main Instagram feed. It just like dilutes what it is that I'm following. So I have separate ones that's just for food and one that's just for fashion, where I literally, that I don't interact with anything. I just look at cakes and I just look at dresses. That's it. So otherwise I'd follow like 10,000 people. It's too much.
Sure.
But no, I don't have a burner account or anything like that. Anything I'm kind of saying or reacting is just me pretty much rocking up and doing stuff.
That's great. I don't have one either.
Yeah. She says.
No, I don't.
It's like, why'd you sip your water at that time? That was the worst time sip in the history of the planet.
No, I don't, but my friend does. So if I want to see something a bit, if you want to go on so-and-so's page, so I don't get, especially if their page is private and you don't want to have to like request.
Yeah.
My friend's got a burner account, so she'll do it for me.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything I want to look at or anyone I want to look at that's kind of hidden or anything. If anything, people tend to send me stuff, which I kind of wish I'd stop doing. They tend me, like, can you please be outraged about this? I'm like, really? No.
That's interesting. So people ask you to be outraged at stuff.
Yeah, they're like, I'm not like Kelechi always says she's not an angry black woman, but then people like, oh my god, have you seen this? And I'm like, yes, because I'm an adult on the internet and I work in social media, literally. Like, I work in media. I spend all day online. I see things all the time. I just don't pay attention or have to react to every single thing. But people have started doing that way more so this year. I talked about racism once and people can't stop sending me videos because I never knew what it was up until June. It's like, never seen it before then, hun. This is all brand new fucking information for me. It's all brand new. So my eyes have been open. I'm woke now. So yeah, people do that. And so actually this brings you really neatly round to, earlier I said about like scrapping with people online, which don't get me wrong, I'm not out here putting on the gloves, squaring up for fights or whatever. It's truly like when people have done things that are wild, and then when I never go in saying that's it, I'm gonna like, this is what I'm gonna say to you, or like I'm gonna be unreasonable. Bear in mind, like pre-June 2020, everything had to be softly, kind of. Whereas now, I'll just say to someone, "Yeah, this is fucking stupid." But beforehand, it was very much softly, or just kind of explaining why something from a particular point of view and why it might upset our friends. Right. Like circling back around to kind of relationships on social media and kind of like not fighting on social media, but certainly being a bit more combative. Now, post June, we can definitely go all in and say you're an idiot for saying what you're saying. But pre-June 2020, when we were kind of still aware we'd be gaslit, aware people wouldn't listen to us, etc., I have definitely fallen out with some people over things on social media. If I say fallen out, I didn't like them that much in the first place. Otherwise, I maybe would have been nicer about it. But I certainly said what I thought and voted with my feet, or they did, because they were really upset by what I said. I mean, I don't care, but some of them, honestly, sorry, Ruth and Claire, you're racist. But I was like, I actually still have screenshots of that, and I was like, well, that aged well, didn't it? Because they definitely, one of them at least posted a black square this year, and I'm like, I don't need to dash receipts in their face. They're in their faces. They're not famous. They're not famous. It doesn't matter, but we all know what they're thinking. But yeah, do you think that the social media can affect our relationships? Not just about when it comes to things like being on the right side of morality, I'm going to call it, but also on like just other things. Do you think it can affect our love lives, friendships, expectations of people?
1,000%. Like, oh my goodness. It's like when like you haven't replied to your 50 WhatsApps, but like you're still posting on Instagram, and like people get pissed off with you because they're like, yeah, well, you were posting on Instagram, and it's like, yeah, because I've got the energy to post. I've not got the energy to converse with you right now. Not because I don't love you, but like kind of can't be bothered to get into a convo, but I will reply to your message in like 7 hours. But it's like the people have expectations because you're constantly online for you to respond when they want you to, because they've seen, you know what I mean? It's like, well, my Instagram personality is different from my actual, well, it's the same, but like my levels of like engagement is different, because it's like being on Instagram, I think for me is quite effortless. Same with Twitter, the sense of like you're just consuming things. You're not really necessarily like really using your hard brain skills. Whereas to then get into a long chat with your friend, you've got to actually be like super engaged. Also, so I think there's definitely, we have expectations for our friends to respond to us ASAP because you're online. Also, I think dating as well, like there's all this stuff about when people are in relationships and then they will hide their boyfriends, like influencers do it quite a lot, where they hide their boyfriend's face, and people feel entitled because you're an influencer and you put your personal life out there. I am entitled to know who your boyfriend is, and I'm going to find him, and why don't you show your boyfriend's face, and why don't like people asking you all these questions because you put yourself out there. Again, we have so much entitlement to like, and I think that could also come from the fact that back in the day, like let's say the Kardashians era, social media didn't come in. I suppose Instagram didn't start until I think it was 2010. So with the Kardashians, it was like, that was our example, and the Osbournes was, I suppose, and Run's House even was an example of like,
I still love Run's House,
of like chaotic families and like celeb and goss and like, you know, wait till next week to find out like what happens next. Whereas now, like, A, you can have your own reality show if you wanted to because you can do it on YouTube. But B, we all have our own platform. We all are influencers. So that attitude where we felt entitled to see, you know, Kim K's marriage or, you know, what happened with their sex tape is the same entitlement that we're using with other people because they're on a platform too, you know. So we feel that entitlement to to see other people's relationships, and also like I personally don't really like dating people who like have heavy social media use, if you ask me, just because I've
never dated anyone that has.
I don't like it. I'm like, no. I'm gonna see you later, so why do you have to know that like I was wearing a face mask with like, do you know what I mean, like, why do you need to see? I just feel like there's like, do you need to see everything? Like I don't really,
because we're both
like
in
that.
kind of media, I feel like I don't need my partners to be in that space
either,
like, as well.
1,000%. It's like a bit like, oh,
it has to be separate. It's nice to be separate. Like my ex wasn't on it because he was a psychotherapist, so he couldn't be because he worked with children. They would find him like adolescents, and it's like anyone I've dated since, they just have no presence at all on social. They're like not even on Facebook, and I never post or write anything really about my relationship. It's just all like separate.
No, definitely. And I don't, even when I'm in a relationship, like I'm in one now, I wouldn't be posting me and my boyfriend because like some things are sacred. Like, I don't feel like why. I mean, I don't mind putting myself out there, but I think then when it goes into your relationship, that's like a deeper part of your private life. Yeah. And they're things that you have to protect, I think, when you put yourself out there. So I think that we have entitlement to other people's lives. That's what social media, I think, does, is that we relationships, friendships, and even like, I suppose, being nosy and having, if you wanted to stalk your ex, you could. You don't have to like, it's not like, and are people ever really gone from your life if they're on social media?
It's really skewed. Hasn't it really skewed that kind of really healthy timeline for relationships? Relationships no longer have an arc. Like, you know, you'd leave school and you would just never see people again. Yeah. Right. Or like maybe you'd run into them maybe when you went to your hometown, or if they have a reunion, which I'm really glad my school doesn't. So it's just, but I wonder if we don't do reunions anymore because everyone can see each other online. But then, you know, there's that, I feel like it's skewed how we perceive, consume and end relationships now. We don't have a healthy timeline to it. And it's just like people are, don't get me wrong, this is no diss to the people that are still speaking to me from school, because if I'm speaking to you, it's because I like you and I want you to be in my life. Please don't take it the wrong way. But there are other people and they will try and add me and everything else. It's like, no, I'm just not interested. I have to have that. There's a boundary. This relationship is over. Not because you weren't nice. It's just...
I got 1,000%.
Yeah.
It's like
knowing you at 10 isn't the same as knowing you now.
1,000%. And I think things like Facebook and Instagram, it gives people access to you that they wouldn't ordinarily have. And because if you put yourself out there, then it's like, oh, well, why wouldn't you respond to my message? Because you put yourself out there. It's like, well, no, not really. Like, I don't have to respond to your message. You're never really far away from people. But the thing is, especially... like if I'm ending a relationship or whatever, in the past, I've like blocked people because I'm like, no, it's more for me in the sense of like, I just want to pretend that like you just were never in my world because it's easier for me. It's easier for me to cope. But it's like things like that I think are, and especially even people who are like, you know, victims of abuse and stuff. It's hard to keep away from people when you're on social media because they can, you know, they can use, it's like I saw this, tweet the other, like a meme thing the other day, and it was like you'll block your ex and then you'll see that like 3332222 Instagram at is watching your stories. And it's like, it's so true. Like,
so true.
You can't, like, you're never really away from people, and people will always feel like they have access to you as long as they can see you.
Yeah.
They have access to you. That, to them, that's access, even if they're not talking to you. And I think that can be quite scary, but also that's why I believe in, like, me on social media is me, but it's also not me.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's obviously, like, Jackie Big Tits, but there's also Jackie who, like, might not want to talk for the whole day and just watch movies all day, and that's also me, but that might not be the me that I necessarily showcase online all of the time, because that's me protecting myself. Because I think if you put so much of yourself out there, then people feel like they have a say on your life, or they have ownership, or they have pieces of you, and no one should ever feel like, I would never want to be in a position where you feel like people have puppet strings, and like you feel like you have to address this, and that's what celebrities feel like they have to do quite a lot of the time. They have to address stuff because people are like, oh, well, why haven't you done this? And blah, 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 blah. So they have to be like, I don't want to have to address this, but I have to, because
I just wanted to live my life, but I have to tell you now, even though none of you are related to me and you don't live in my house.
Oh my God, and the scrutiny of, like, you know, if a celebrity takes a picture with, like, their kid in the baby seat, they might have not put the seatbelt on the baby, but the car might not be in motion.
So
and
this
then
person is trying to kill their baby.
Like the comments are just like, you're irresponsible mother. Like, it's crazy that we're all, as human beings, I think we're all very hard on each other as well. Well, some are harder on each other than others, but also one thing that I think is good about social media is the mental health conversations. And being kind, and because as much as there is ugliness on there, like there's ugliness in this world, there's also some really amazing, beautiful people running some fantastic campaigns and having some really good conversations. So at least we have some positive in this social media thing. But I think expectations is we've got very high expectations of people, or like, oh my God, he's watching my stories, and like, but he hasn't spoken to me in 3 weeks, what does that mean? And it's like, you know what I mean? It's like, just because people are watching your stories, it doesn't actually mean anything. You know, like, what does it even mean?
Unless they don't follow you and then they watch your stories, because that's creepy, because that has happened to me before.
What did you think that was? What is that, do you think?
Do you know what? It's when I was dating this guy, this is maybe about 3 years ago, and then it was kind of like really early state. It didn't even really go that far. And then he hadn't spoken to me. And I mean, we'd been on a date and we'd spoken, don't get me wrong, but I hadn't spoken to him because I don't speak to people all the time. So I haven't thought anything of it. But I know he didn't follow me on Instagram. And then every time me and my friend, I don't even really post stories that much. I don't really do anything in the current time. I don't like people knowing where I am at any one point as well. So I was posting stuff, and it was one of the very few times I post anything currently with my mate. And and there were gaps between my stories. But when I went on, he'd gone and he'd looked at them, but he didn't follow me. So I was like, so you've had to go into my...
He's had to search.
Yeah, you've had to look for me. And then every time you see the colour ring appear, you've gone and looked at it. And also really quickly, even though he's not following me. And I'm like, no, you've had to make the effort to do this, and this is weird.
Did you ever ask him, like, why?
No, I didn't speak to him after that. I don't know, for me, I was just like, he was a little bit odd. And I was like, nah, that's all right. I thought it was a bit strange. So
I think I always find stuff like that interesting, because I think social media, one thing I've learned is that, like, with social media, like, it makes you like feel like you have to like read in between the lines and things like that. But really, I think when it comes to social media, and like even when it comes to dating and stuff, and it's like, oh, he's watching my stories, and what does this mean? Because I haven't spoken to him, or my ex from like 2 years ago, what does that mean? And I always think, well, if he hasn't messaged you, then it don't mean anything.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to like go on someone's story just because you're being nosy. And then it's like, nosy. And then you forget that you've looked at it, but then the person might be sitting there overthinking, Googling, being like, okay, so-and-so looked at my story, like, what does this mean? Like, does this mean that they want to, you know? And I think social media is access. People have access to you that they wouldn't have. And so sometimes we translate that access to, do they miss me? Does this mean that they care about me? And does this mean this? When actually it don't mean anything. It just means that we're just curious.
Yeah. And I think that's that thing, is kind of finding that line between curiosity and anything else. And actually, there's a few things you said that have been really interesting. Now, like, one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, do you think that, I mean, you kind of answered it when we talked about celebrities, but in our own lives, in interpersonal relationships, do you think social media has made us more judgmental, like, of each other? Not of celebrities, not of people who have their entire lives are spewed all over the screen or whatever, for whatever reason, but just people.
That's a really good question. Has it made us more judgmental? I guess so. I think so, in a sense of if you put yourself on social media, like looking a certain way, then I think it's hard because I think if you as an influencer or you as a person puts yourself out on social media as having this specific look and doing these specific things, and then when people meet you, you're like the total opposite, then I think then people will be judgmental because it's almost like, well, why are you doing this on there? But in real life, you're not like this. And then, but then I guess that ties to expectations. Do I really think people are judgmental? It's interesting because I haven't actually experienced it, but probably, probably. I think, actually, maybe in the sense of this, for example, I think like Instagram stories and things like that. Like when let's say you want to like, I don't know, post yourself. Let's say you wouldn't class yourself as a vlogger, but like you like talking to the camera. I know so many people that who've said to me like, oh, I wish I could just like, go on Instagram stories and like say this or dance on Instagram stories. And I'm like, well, why don't you? And they're like, oh, like I just feel like people are gonna like think, what are you doing? Yeah. And I'm like, well, I don't think people really sit and examine that much. Like, I think people have got other things to do. But there is that whole thing of like people thinking because they've seen you one way offline, that if you do anything that's also different to the way you are offline, then it's like, well, why are you doing that then? Yeah. But it's actually like having to navigate through the fact that people don't care as much as we think they do. Yes. I think starting my podcast made me realise that like people don't really care. Like people have actually, we're human beings. Like we're more concerned with like what we're having for dinner or what cheese we're having on our like spag bowl than like, what.
It should only be Parmesan.
Yeah, I mean, but grated is, do you not like grated?
Yeah, no, because my stepdad's Italian and he has been since I was like pretty much a baby. So absolutely no.
Is it Parmesan? I've been doing it wrong then.
Yes, Parmesan or Gran Padano or Pecorino at the very,
Okay, sorry, I'm cheap.
Cheddar.
I've been doing Parmesan.
Sorry, I'm judging you
I've been
now.
doing grated.
This is me. I'm judging you. It's got nothing to do with social media and everything to do with cheese. So.
No, definitely. I think people are, and to be honest, I have had actually now when I think about it, I've been judged more from like my dad being a vicar and things like that, like, oh, why did you post that? And like, people are going to think this and that sort of thing. But that's what my dad would be like if I had my tits out.
Yeah, if you were on social media.
Yeah, so it's kind of that sort of thing. But I actually think that if your brand is you, then I think you're judged in a different way, I guess. And it's a way that you almost reclaim. You're almost like, oh, whatever, you don't care. So people almost expect. I don't feel like, I think people are, do you know what? I think if you put yourself out there as someone who's like, this is me and I'm imperfect, then people are actually in awe of you, I think, more. Because it's really bold and courageous to like, for you, even for you to have a podcast and talk about all types of things. Like people are so hard on themselves. I'd love to start a podcast, but like I feel like no one would care what I say, or nobody, people have all these thoughts and they get so into their head and they don't do it. And it's like, but you don't know how amazing you'd be at it. But it's because they're scared of the way.
It might be fun as well.
Exactly, but they're scared of the way that people will perceive them. Because it's like, oh, well, in day-to-day life, I might be quiet in my office, but when I'm with my friends, I'm really loud, but no one sees that side of me. So people might judge me. And it's like, I suppose there's that. People can have different personalities online to offline, which is also okay, I think, if it's you. But I personally have only felt judgment from like the fact that my dad's a pastor. Yeah. But I imagine people are a lot more judgmental, but in a way that I haven't experienced, I think.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because that made me think as you were saying that, and I know that there are some people that would say I'm judgmental.
Really?
They've said that from when I was a kid. I'm definitely less judgmental than I used to be. I used to be such a dick. I mean, more of a dick. But then it's kind of odd because when people come to me, when my friends come to me or talk to me or anything, if you're coming to me for the truth.
Right.
You're not coming to me for anything else.
You're the best kind of friend.
Yeah. Well, if you've got to my door, you've already exhausted everybody gassing you up. Sure. Like you're here for a reason. And I think that one of the things I think that social media did, because again, it gave you these like kind of false relationships. There are people that are in my life on social media, who once I'd left that job or whatever else, genuinely I wouldn't have seen him again. There'd be no contact. They'd never see anything. And so I think a part of them forgot what I was like. And then they may have written something on social, and then I just responded, and they're like, "Oh my God!" And that they I know that some people have said, "Oh, she's so judgmental." I'm like, "Well, no, I would say that to you if I heard you say it. If you said it to me and you sat next to me, that's what I'd say. I think you've just forgotten, so it's made me look more judgmental." But I'm like, no, it's not because of social. It's because you forgot, because we have this false relationship. So I wonder if some people are also, like you were saying, you haven't seen judgment in a particular way, but then maybe because the relationships you have online are really specific, whereas it's just more, it was not now. I think my friendship group like thing is it's pretty well filtered, whereas before it wasn't. It was just everyone that wants to add you whether you want them to or not. And there was that point when there was a point where no one could request you as a friend.
Yeah.
And when they took that off, it opened the floodgates. Not because I'm so great and everybody wants to be my friend, but I know it's social norms.
For sure. I actually think that social media has made me less judgmental, actually.
Yeah.
Specifically, I think in terms of, I definitely growing up was like, I used to think like, why doesn't everyone just do the things the way that I do them? Because it was almost like, we always think we're right. It's like, like, the way I was raised this was the right way. And why don't people do it? And so one thing it's made me less judgmental about, especially with my friends, is more like, for example, my best friend has anxiety and like, I'm very, when I'm very, like, she has social anxiety as well. So like, she doesn't like being the center of attention, like, and that means like, she doesn't like playing games or like, anything that makes her like the spotlight on her, she just doesn't like. So growing up is very much like, oh, you never want to go out and you never want to do this. And like, and like, it was only until like, I follow loads of like therapy pages on Instagram or like sometimes
there are some great ones.
There's some freaking, and some of them read you your truth and you're like,
oh, exactly. I feel seen and attacked this morning.
Yeah, like I'm actually triggered. And it was I followed this therapy page. She was talking about anxiety, and she was saying about how like, I'm not trying to be a dick or I'm not trying to upset you. I've just got anxiety. And then I remember reading all these other pages about anxiety, and I was thinking, oh my God, Jade, I'm so sorry for all the times that I was like, you don't do this and you don't do that and you always want to do things your way, because actually it was your anxiety. And I think that reading, if it wasn't for social media, would I have gone and searched it? Probably not. But because it was there, so I think it's definitely made me like more conscious actually of other people, also of myself, but other people. Like, it's been very good for my friendships actually, because it just, even if I don't even want to learn, I find that like things just appear on my feed that are just triggering as hell, and I'm like, damn, okay, get my edges today then, cool. Like, cool, it's 9 a.m. but fine. So I think it's actually made me like less judgmental. Not that I ever really felt like I was judgmental anyway. So yeah, I'm similar to you in the sense of I'm a hard friend, but in the sense of like, it's like, when your friend like comes to you for advice, but then they do the opposite thing. I'm like, eventually I'm like, no, we're not doing that. You just get to that point where it's like, no. So I think in that sort of sense, but I think it's definitely made me like more conscious of other people, the things other people are going through. It's not just like, it's not all about you.
I think I don't think it's made me not necessarily like kinder or less. I mean, you just made me, I think, less judgmental. But then I've realised that facetiousness of those relationships can make people see me as judgmental because they've forgotten what I'm like. And I think, and then so it's definitely kind of fall into that kind of. There's, for some people, I definitely sit. I know I firmly sit in that category, and I'm like, look, I'm sorry, but it is what it is. Why
do you think that like you were like judgmental growing up? Do you think?
I'm not judgmental about horrible things. Like, don't get me wrong, I was always like, I was. Do you know what it was? Judgmental about really moral things because I was brought up by an activist. So I'm like very much. It's like, so not judgmental about things that are like stupid or frivolous. It was like, well, why were you calling that person? Why were you saying that, making fun of them being gay? Like, why did you say that everything's gay instead of just saying that you didn't like it? So it was really specific.
No, but that's good. I think that's good.
But then I wouldn't necessarily handle it now I'm older, I can handle it differently,
Right.
or but then when I was young, I wouldn't necessarily handle it in the same way. I would go out of my way to embarrass people for what I saw as a lack of morality because they were being horrible to someone else or something else. And I'm like, well, now I'm going to turn the tables on you. And it kind of then makes me look judgmental, but genuinely, they just didn't understand. They just didn't know. But I wasn't, I was a kid. You don't know any better. That right. Everyone's just forms their opinions based on what they've grown up with. Not everybody knows. Not everybody was, raised in the same way. So I think when I got older, I've got a little bit better at that. And then sometimes just really, I think it's just the harshness. Just some people may see that as being judgmental. It's like, well, no, like if you know me well enough, you know that you come to me last because I'm not going to tell you anything that you should. I'm going to tell you what you need to hear.
But that's I think that's what people need.
Then you stop looking judgmental. But I think initially when some people have met me, they were like, they thought I was until they realised it's like, no, I'm just not going to waste my time lying to you because this is my time.
Yolanda, I think that's a fantastic trait. And
but I can understand how it can also properly make me look like a dick. So at times.
Wow, that's great self-awareness.
But it's
though.
Okay. Yeah. It's all right. It's okay. Maybe also because I'm maybe slightly more tactful if I like you more. As well. Right. It's like, if you're my best friends, of course I'm going to say it like it is. But there's still a certain amount of delivery. But if I'm maybe just a little bit more cavalier with your feelings, then I think that's the problem. I think I can be a little bit at times too cavalier. So yeah. But yes. Anyway, back to Facebook and how much of a dick I've been on Facebook. Now I'm joking. So actually back to Facebook. So to wrap up, I think there's one thing that we need to talk about that has happened on Facebook that's real big. And I'm going to ask you this question and I want to see what your answer is. Okay. Did boomers break democracy because they can't tell what's fake news and what isn't, but they kept sharing it on Facebook?
Yeah.
Okay.
1,000%. And my mum is like such a boomer. Like she will share, she used to, when I was living at home, she would share stuff on Facebook and be like, Jackie, you need to see this. And I'm like, Mum, that's not real. She's like, no, it is. And then you've got like my aunties and uncles being like, this is disgraceful. This is this. And I'm like, that is literally not real. It's the same with like, I don't know if you had this during lockdown. No, before lockdown, when COVID, we were sort of about to get locked down, and like all my mum, my dad was sending all these like WhatsApp messages about COVID, being like, it's the 5G and it's this and it's that. And my dad was sending round tips about how if you drink green tea and this and that it kills the virus. I'm like, who told you this? And he's like, no, someone told me that like it just kills the virus completely. I'm like, no, it doesn't. Like, stop it. Yeah. 1,000%. Oh my God. And he was sharing that on Facebook. And like, they're all like, yeah, I've been drinking green tea. I've stacked up. Yeah. For sure. I think like our parents' generation, because we've grown up in this digital age, where obviously we're more efficient and we're more quick, and like things like sharing news isn't that of a phenomenon to us. But for them, I suppose getting news was like you actually had to go to the shop and then buy the newspaper or wait for the 10 o'clock news. So anything that they think is being reported must be accurate, and it's like, well, no.
Yeah, it's almost made all information equal, even though it really isn't.
Exactly. I agree. I think they did. What about you?
Yeah. Yeah, I said this to my mum the other day, and she was having a go at younger people. She doesn't do it often. She was kind of doing it very much with a jokey edge. And I was like, woman, shut up. Your age group broke democracy.
Oh God, definitely. I mean, Facebook is just, I leave Facebook really to like my mum and dad. My mum just like gets her whole life on Facebook. Like, I'm like, you need to write a column, honey, because the way she's writing and analysing this, I'm like, okay, like. It's definitely like a mum and dad's. Yeah. It's their little thing.
It is, isn't it? Definitely. And there's have been times when I've seen so much crap being shared, I'm like, should there be an age limit on sharing anything that isn't nice videos of pets being reunited with their owners? Like, or do you have to answer a certain amount of questions to work out which generation you're in before you send it? Or should there be a test where you need to learn to identify fake news and then we let you on Facebook? Because truly, this is how Donald Trump got into power.
Definitely. And I think Twitter started doing a thing where they don't let you retweet something. If you're about to retweet something without reading
they'll ask you.
Yeah, they'll ask you, like, have you read this? Read this before sharing. So I think there's things in place.
But I think Facebook does it, but it's so rare that you see it.
Yeah, I have not seen it.
I've seen it twice this year.
I definitely don't get my news off Facebook, like, at all.
No,
like,
exactly. It's Facebook, guys.
Like, absolutely not. So yeah, I think our parents they spoiled democracy.
Yeah, exactly. We love you all, guys, but honestly, just don't share anything new. Just share puppy videos. Isn't this cat
that's
cute?
fine. Oh, this is it. And like, share pictures of us as babies.
Look how funny this parrot is. That's what I want to see from you. Yeah,
1,000%. Yes, please, Mum.
Wicked. And if you could leave us with one like parting tip on how to use social media wisely to protect yourself and your mind and your health and your peace, what would you say?
I would say, if you want to like protect yourself and just build a better relationship with yourself and social media, I would say spend as much time online as offline. Get the balance right, or try and get the balance right. And I think, especially during this time, try and live life the best way that you can in life. I think that like sometimes we look to social media for a solution or just to see what everyone else is doing. And we put so much energy on what everyone else is doing. And actually it's good to focus on like, okay, what could I be doing right now? How can I enhance my life? Because sometimes I feel like we spend so long on social media, and then, like I say, I couldn't even tell you what I've looked at, but I've been I've been scrolling for like 3 hours. And like, I know there's a lot about like self-care, practice self-care with yourself, you know, don't just like do it because you want to take a picture and be like hashtag self-care. Actually, all the things that we're talking about online, practice it offline, do all those things offline, take time for yourself, you know, read a book, go for a walk, like do things that make you wholesome. Because if you ask me, I don't think social media can fulfill you, but I think that only you can fulfill you. So doing things that like make you feel whole is the best present that you can give yourself.
Yeah. Oh, wicked. Thank you. Where can you be found online? Where do you want people to find you?
If you want to find me, you can find my like terrible tweets at Jackie Adedeji on Twitter, but I am more active on Instagram, and my Instagram is oh my gosh, it's Jackie. And then my podcast is also Jackie Big Tits Podcast, which you can follow on Instagram, and you can find it on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, TuneIn, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts. And you can follow my Metro column. You can just type in my name, Jackie Adedeji, the Metro, and stuff will come up. Or if you go on the website all the time, you will see my big head pop up probably next week. So, and just stay empowered and stay being the best version of yourself.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining me today, Jackie. It's been a pleasure.
A pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Speak On. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share with your friends, family, co-workers, strangers in the street. To find out more about us, including our upcoming events, head over to Instagram, instagram.com/speakon_. Bye!